What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. It is your friend Paul Gallant, host of Danny and Gallant, which you can hear on 710 ESPN Seattle, and also a former talk show host in Houston, Texas. We're going to do a little bit of both from Houston. As I return from Houston, we're going to tell you a little Ask Gallant Anything. But first, we've got a bunch of topics that I want to dive into. There is a potential trade that the Seahawks are interested in. An old Seahawk might be taking shots at Pete Carroll. We've also got a former Texan taking some shots at the Texans, and I want to share with you my favorite Rockets memory. It's not going to be condescending. It's not going to be mean. I know that's what you're assuming. No, that's not going to be it. And a rivalry that I think is really good for sports. Plus your questions, you know how to ask them. You can ask them right now via Facebook, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, on Periscope at Gallant Says, on my YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/Paul Gallant, or on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gallant Says. But before we get to that, I wanted to lead off talking about something that honestly got me a little bit worked up this past week. DeSean Jackson did an idiotic thing. He reposted a hateful, anti-Semitic message that he believed somehow, some way, showed the plight of Black America. Instead, he posted something that began with Hitler said, and it's led to a whole lot of hullabaloo since then. Whenever you see something that in bold begins with Hitler said, you probably shouldn't repost it. That's just me. I'm getting exhausted with all the goalpost moving that we have been seeing in 2020. We are mad at everything. I get it. There's a pandemic. There's politicians that we don't like on both sides of the aisle. But whenever a controversial incident takes place, especially when it has to do with words, can't we just say, that was a stupid thing to say, shame, 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 wait for their apology, possible consequences, hope that they learn and move on? I feel like that would be a very productive way for all of us to go about doing things. Sadly, that's not the way that things go. I understand why we are about, I think, as angry as we've ever been when it comes to race relations in our country and politics in our country. So I understand why people sometimes don't act rationally. But I always feel like there is room for it. And I like to think, despite my hot-headed temper and extremely hot takes at times, that I can find a divide between the left, the right, and all the other parties that are all over the place as well, so that we can just have a productive conversation, a dialogue, a back and forth. And one of the cool things that has come out of this is that Julian Edelman, a Jewish football player, reached out to DeSean Jackson. They had a conversation. They made this offer where Julian Edelman said, hey, I'll take you to the Holocaust Museum. And DeSean Jackson said, I'll take you to a Black History Museum. I guess they also had a conversation based off of what Julian Edelman tweeted. Great, this is fantastic. I want to go back to DeSean Jackson's original post. And I'm going to compare it to what Drew Brees had to say about the flag, because there are some similarities here. What DeSean Jackson did was stupider, and it's more insensitive than what Drew Brees did. But both of them did dumb things, apologized multiple times for it, realized that the first apology wasn't good enough, and then they're still at the epicenter of this bleep storm of anger, where there are some people who were defending Drew Brees. There were some people who were defending DeSean Jackson. Look, DeSean Jackson reposted something that this guy by the name of Farrakhan, who is an extremist as part of the, I believe it's the Nation of Islam, which is, if you don't know, the group that's responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X back in the 1960s. It's a group that's been very anti-Semitic for a very long period of time, and Farrakhan is very well known for it. There's some people that buy into some of the things he says. He's a very powerful speaker. I can understand why some people ignore all the bad things that he might be saying, the bad thoughts of misogyny and other things that he has had along the way. I'm not rationalizing it. I'm just saying how some people might overlook all of that stuff. But when DeSean Jackson saw that, I think he, for whatever reason, felt like he was educating other people on it. And DeSean Jackson is someone who I don't believe meant any harm when he did that. He shouldn't have done it. It was stupid. And any explanations or rationalizations are that he did after the fact are really just burying his IQ in the middle of the earth. There were some other people that commented on this. Marquise Goodwin left a post on DeSean Jackson's Instagram saying that he wished that there was as much reaction to Black Lives Matter posts as there was to what DeSean Jackson said. He moved the goalpost there. That's not what anyone's talking about here. No one's talking about Black Lives Matter in this situation. And by the way, they shouldn't be, because it doesn't have anything to do with what what DeSean Jackson reposted. He moved the goalposts. And Marquise Goodwin, who is a very nice person based off of everything I've heard about him and is someone who has overcome a lot over the last couple of years, multiple miscarriages with his wife, he moved the goalpost. He knows better than this. I don't believe that Steven Jackson meant harm defending DeSean Jackson, but saying DeSean Jackson was speaking the truth and trying to educate is flat wrong. Best case scenario, DeSean saw something that was posted on Instagram and he just lazily reposted it. Talking about social injustice and police brutality, like Steven Jackson did in his video defending DeSean Jackson, was again, goalpost moving. Comparing DeSean Jackson's situation to Riley Cooper's situation, goalpost moving. We have no ability to stick to the topic at hand these days, and I don't understand why. Again, it is this simple. DeSean Jackson reposted an anti-Semitic post. That was idiotic. It's that bleeping simple. Jackson would apologize on Wednesday night and saying that he used the wrong words in his defense of DeSean. Huh, no way. He said he wasn't being anti-Semitic. He apologized, though, just like DeSean Jackson apologized, just like Drew Brees apologized. I would like to get to the point where we can accept the apologies and just hope that these people act better. Because guess what? We all say stupid things. Are stupid things, should they be an indictment of our character? I don't feel that way. Pretty sure my cat is trying to knock over my green screen. Thanks, Aria. Really appreciate that. What else do we got here? Oh, yeah. Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman had some interesting quotes to say when he was asked about coaching philosophies in the NFL. And people are interpreting it as a shot at Pete Carroll, and I don't see it. Maybe I'm ignorant or something like that, and I understand that there's a track record of Richard Sherman taking shots at the Seahawks while he was on the Seahawks and taking shots at Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson and play calling, specifically passes from the 1 yard line. So maybe people, whenever they see something from Richard Sherman, they are looking for him to have taken a shot at somebody else. He didn't take a shot at Pete Carroll here. The only shot that I think he took in this entire situation was at what he likes and what he doesn't like out of a head coach. Here's what he had to say about Kyle Shanahan that some are interpreting as a shot against Pete. Kyle Shanahan is more of a straight shooter than Pete. Pete has a way of making sure everybody feels good, making sure he pushes buttons with certain players, and not pushing buttons on other players. Okay, so when you see that and take it at face value, he is saying basically that Kyle Shanahan is blunt. And by the way, that blunt nature of Kyle Shanahan has gotten him in trouble in the past. It got him in trouble in Washington. It rubbed some people the wrong way in Atlanta. And there was a conception about him going into San Francisco. He has changed over time, and I think that Richard Sherman is seeing what has happened with a coach that gets more and more mature as time goes on. Is Kyle Shanahan being more of a straight shooter than Pete Carroll, a shot against Pete Carroll? Because in my impression of Pete Carroll, we get to sit with him every single Monday after Seahawks games. This is a guy that is going to be as kind as possible when it comes to criticism. And that's just his style. I've really come to like him over the past year. I don't know that I had that perception of him before I met him. I know a lot of people think of him as someone who has got very weird conspiracy theories, but I got to sit down with him. I feel like he's very thoughtful, and I feel like he doesn't want to be the person that is going to ruin somebody's day by telling them they are not good. Kyle Shanahan is different, and Richard Sherman appreciates that. By the way, Richard Sherman is somebody who will take anything he possibly can and use it as motivation, so of course he's going to like a head coach like this. The guy thought that Baker Mayfield didn't shake his hand and all of a sudden was motivated for a game against the Cleveland Browns because of that. So I don't understand why that thought by Richard Sherman about what he looks for in an NFL head coach. I don't see how that was a shot against Pete Carroll. He continued. More quotes from Richard Sherman in this article on NFL.com by Jim Trotter. Quote, "That honesty with Shanahan is something that I think is valuable in a head coach because there's no gray area. You know where you stand at all times, almost to a point where you're like, damn, that's how you really feel? But you can respect that as a player because what he's saying is objective. Did we win or lose the down? Why did we win or lose the down? If you can give him a fair point back to him, he can take that. He is flexible in that way. Again, I don't see the shot. Now, calling a coach dishonest, which you could imply Richard Sherman did here, maybe that's a shot at him, but I don't get that vibe reading this. I actually think that Sherman's moved on from his time in Seattle. I think that there were sour feelings. Why wouldn't there be, by the way? He got cut by the team that he helped turn into a relevant NFL franchise. He was a big part of that. Honestly, when I was outside of Seattle and I thought of the Seahawks, the first person that I thought of was Richard Sherman. Whether it was you mad, bro, against Tom Brady and the Patriots, the rant that he had after the interception and getting in Crabtree's face in the NFC Championship game that ultimately led to the Seahawks winning their first championship. It's one of those things that I have always looked at and thought to myself, if you were someone like that, and all of a sudden you just get unplugged from the organization you're a part of, you're bound to be mad. You're bound to be upset. But I don't think that anything that Sherman said in this piece is an indictment of Pete Carroll. I think it's an appreciation session for Kyle Shanahan. And look, that might be inconsistent. I mean, it's weird that Richard Sherman likes a blunt coach after he did not see eye to eye with Jim Harbaugh when he was at Stanford. Famously, they did not get along. And it's weird to see that he has also gone out of his way to defend Jimmy Garoppolo, who clearly is nowhere close to the quarterback that Russell Wilson is, when he took shots at Russell Wilson and never really gave him that same defense. Inconsistency there, no doubt about it. But do we have to take a look at someone that maybe we don't feel the same way about and believe that every single time he's saying something about his ex or commenting on his ex that it's bad? Sometimes, believe it or not, maybe not the case in my own parents' marriage, people can put the hard feelings in the rearview mirror. I don't think Sherman was taking a shot at Pete Carroll. If you disagree, you know what to do. You can leave a comment or ask a question. Our own Jake Heaps at 710 ESPN Seattle of Tom, Jake, and Stacey's show that you're going to hear in about 45 minutes yesterday said that in conversations that he's had with front office officials on the East Coast, and I'm assuming this is coming out of the New York Jets front office, that the Seahawks have inquired about Jets safety Jamal Adams. He wants to trade out of New York, probably because the Jets stink. Also because he wants a new contract. Combine the factors of a team being bad and not paying you what you want. Yeah, I can see why the guy wants out. He doesn't have a whole lot of leverage here, though. The new CBA is going to prevent him, essentially, from holding out because he will get fined for every single day that he misses. And on top of that, if he doesn't play every single game this coming season on his rookie contract, he will not accrue a year towards free agency, and he's still going to be stuck with the Jets under team control. Now, saying that he wants out definitely gives the Jets a reason to potentially move on from him, but the Jets are going to want a whole lot in return. So the question is, should the Seahawks make a trade for somebody like Jamal Adams? No, I don't think so, and here's why. The only reason that you are trading for Jamal Adams is because you're desperate. Are the Seahawks desperate defensively at the safety position? Pass rush, yes. Cornerback, maybe. But the only reason to make a trade for Jamal Adams, one that would likely be of desperation and result in an overpay, is because you have no faith in either Bradley McDougald or Marquise Blair or both, or you don't know that Ugo Amadi is good enough to be your starting nickel corner and are considering moving Marquise Blair into that spot. I feel like you got to roll the dice on Marquise Blair and see what he can bring to the table, either as a safety, taking over for Bradley McDougald, or as a nickel corner. He's got to see the field. And the problem the Seahawks might run into if they trade for Jamal Adams, they're probably going to have to trade multiple draft picks. He plays a position that's important, but he's not like an Earl Thomas type. He is a thumper of a safety, the way that Cam Chancellor used to be. Getting someone like Cam Chancellor would be great if it's 2015. It's not 2015 anymore. The NFL has changed. A thumper is not necessarily what you want. You want a center fielder, the center fielder that Earl Thomas was in the early 2010s, the entire 2010s. He was the best safety in the league at doing that. He was awesome. Is he the same guy anymore in Baltimore? I don't know, but that's what you're looking to replace, and that's something that I feel like Quandre Diggs can do adequately. I like Quandre Diggs a lot as a safety. But what does a thumper really do for you? Especially when you have one in Marquise Blair. Bringing in another thumper. Is the defense going to improve significantly because they're bringing somebody else in on the back end? No. The pass rush is the big thing that needs to change here. And the pass rush is something that, by the way, you can change. You know how you change it? You make a move for someone like Chris Jones. Chris Jones is someone I'm willing to trade a second-round draft pick just to have as a one-year rental and maybe see what you can do at the end of the year. Because if you have some interior pressure, that is going to open things up so much for a Seahawks secondary that wasn't that great last season. Take a look at the game against the Green Bay Packers that ultimately saw their season come to an end. Take a look at the pass rush in every single game. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney on the edge was really good, but how much pressure was he generating? He only had 3.5 sacks on the season because no one else around him was helping. You're hoping that Jaron Reed's going to be good this season, but what if he's not? Chris Jones and Jaron Reed up the middle, what offensive line is going to be able to handle that if Reed is on his A game and if Jones is just there? And that makes things easy for guys like Bruce Irvin, for Darrell Taylor, the second-round rookie pick out of Tennessee, Alton Robinson, the fifth-round rookie defensive end out of Syracuse. Go Cuse. I feel like that's the move if you're going to make a trade. It's not trading for a safety in Jamal Adams. Okay, we don't know that football is going to return. If football doesn't return, I know that not all of us are golf fans. I'll be honest, whenever I watch golf, I generally fall asleep. Paul, why do you fall asleep? It's a sport. You're supposed to like sports for a living. Well, it's slow. It seems like it's designed for the olds. Who am I to call people old? I'm 31. Paul, you're 31 years old. That's not old. Okay, whatever. But I definitely fall asleep a lot while playing golf. Excuse me, not while playing golf. While I play golf, I throw temper tantrums all the time. When I watch golf, yeah, it's hard for me to pay attention for all that time. If I am actually still awake, I'm probably going to move on and do something else while golf's on in the background. So, Bryson DeChambeau, what a name that is, huh? Bryson DeChambeau is a guy that I think is one of the most unlikable athletes in all of sports. And the reason is because he confronted a cameraman last weekend at the Rocket Mortgage Classic, an event where he was dominating, crushing balls off the tee and doing a really good job. And he gets mad at a cameraman because on one of the shots that he didn't hit so well, he threw his club and the cameraman zoomed in on him. So he goes up to the cameraman and confronts him. And afterwards, he rationalized it as, oh, I was defending my brand. Golfers need to be defended a little bit more. Stop being a wuss, dude. Like, if you struggle, people are going to see it. If you're okay having them see the struggle, fine. Go ahead and temper tantrum away. If you don't want people to see it, don't do it. It's that simple. I'm someone who breaks clubs when I play golf. I'm not very good. If I mess up on a hole, especially after doing well, I get very frustrated very easily. So I can empathize with Bryson DeChambeau on that front. But you're getting paid millions of dollars because this game is on television. Oh, cameraman, why are you following me? It sounded like an absolute wuss. And by the way, this is a guy who also takes like 40 minutes to line up a shot. By 40, I mean 3 minutes. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but goodness gracious. It's like watching a generic relief pitcher with a 5.0 ERA come into the middle of a baseball game, take 3 minutes adjusting his crotch, spitting out tobaccos or whatever's in his mouth between pitches, and then eventually, like after 3 pitches, the guy gets shelled. It's a little different with DeChambeau because he's actually good, but man, speed things up. And that's the reason I like Brooks Koepka a whole lot. Brooks Koepka I also like because he is patient, and somehow, some way, this is a guy that when he golfs, he doesn't get mad. He doesn't get angry. He's like very, very chill when it comes to golfers. Chill to the point of he doesn't really care about any events outside of majors. He and Bryson DeChambeau have an interesting back and forth relationship. DeChambeau randomly commented on Brooks Koepka and his lack of abs a year ago, which is bizarre. And Brooks Koepka has commented on DeChambeau's extremely slow pace of play. So they don't really like each other. And this past week on Twitter, Brooks Koepka just tweets an out-of-context gif of Kenny Powers, accused of being on steroids in the television show Eastbound and Down. And I think it's in reference to Bryson DeChambeau, who all of a sudden is Hulk huge. And he's driving balls like 340 yards at times. He is a lot bigger than he used to be. That's about as subtle and passive-aggressive a way as you possibly can accuse somebody of doing steroids. I love this. I think this is great. You got the man of the people in Brooks Koepka, who I think is very Happy Gilmore-esque, although maybe a chill Happy Gilmore. He's a man of the people. He's casual about golf. I don't think he cares about it too much. And he is, I think, like all of us, what we want to be when we golf. Not frustrated ever. Enjoying ourselves. It's really hard to do, for me, at least. Bryson DeChambeau is Shooter McGavin, who is a fantastic sports movie villain, but he is also completely unlikable. And I think one of the most unlikable athletes in all of sports. And I think that this rivalry would actually make golf interesting if these two actually play it up. I don't know how the PGA encourages that, and I know that the snooty golf club way that golf people in that industry, people in golf tend to be cake eaters. They tend to be snooty, to steal a line out of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's annoying. I'm not a fan of it. I would like to see more back and forth dislike between golfers. I would like to see trash talk between golfers, because I feel like the drama, if you can throw a little bit more of that into golf and change it from being a sport where we're watching to see if Tiger Woods is playing well this tournament to, oh, these guys hate each other, that would be great for the sport, especially now that we might not have football back this coming season. Oh, hey, Paul, why haven't you talked about the Texans yet? You posted in a Texans group. You posted in a 610 group. Why haven't you talked about what DeAndre Hopkins had to say about the Houston Texans? Okay, I will. And this is something I plan on doing at the end of future Ask Gallant Anythings, or possibly named Gallant Says. That might be the title of this. And we're probably going to move these to Wednesday nights at about 6 o'clock Pacific time, 8 o'clock Central time. DeAndre Hopkins tweeted this after Patrick Mahomes signed his record extension. This was on Tuesday. 24 reasons why Mahomes deserves that. 0 doubts he will win more Super Bowls, referring to the Texans holding a 24-0 lead and blowing it. I saw a couple of Texans fans getting really mad about this. Oh, DeAndre Hopkins is bitter. DeAndre, bleep you. I'm going to burn my jersey of you. I saw one person cut out the last name of Hopkins' jersey. All right, you're going to have a huge hole in your back. I hope you have like a cool tattoo or something like that to show there. Don't you guys miss DeAndre Hopkins? Don't you guys understand why DeAndre Hopkins is upset? Aren't you guys upset that the Texans traded away DeAndre Hopkins? And at first glance, I remembered seeing this trade and thinking to myself, my God, this is dumb. You're trading for David Johnson, who hasn't been good in a hot minute. You are only getting, you're trading for David Johnson. You're getting a second-round pick in addition to that. Why are you making this trade happen? Hopkins is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But I think conceptually there are some things that actually might work out here. Deshaun Watson maybe won't lock on to DeAndre Hopkins and hold on to the football as long as he often does. And the Texans can go to potentially an offense featuring 4 wide receivers where you have Kenny Stills, you have Will Fuller. If you still end up having Will Fuller, who knows about that one? You have Brandon Cooks aboard too, and you have Randall Cobb. If you decide to go out 4 wide and then maybe have David Johnson in the backfield, a guy who back in 2016 I thought was the best running back in the NFL, there is a way this can work. It is doubtful that it will, but I can see conceptually what the Texans were trying to do there. But can't you understand why DeAndre Hopkins is mad? And I feel like you guys should be on the same side as DeAndre Hopkins here. I mean, that 24-0 blown lead, you guys were all angry about it. Yeah, he's rubbing it in your face a little bit, but he also just got traded to the Arizona Cardinals, who might not be good this season despite all the hype behind them. I was surprised to see the amount of reaction against DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like you guys should be, I don't know, on his side a little bit more than you are. And it was a funny tweet. I mean, come on. It's going to sting for a while that they blew a 24-0 lead against the Chiefs, but did any of us actually think that the Texans were going to beat the Chiefs in that game? Did any of us really believe that? No matter how we feel about Tyrann Mathieu and what he didn't do in Houston and what he's supposedly doing in Kansas City, Did any of us actually believe that the Texans had a chance in that game? The fact that they got out to the 24-0 lead was a shock and a pleasant surprise, and then obviously it all fell apart. But that was bound to happen. They beat Kansas City earlier in the season. The odds of them doing it twice on the road were extremely low. It stinks that they blew a 24-0 lead. It obviously evaporated really quickly. They did some dumb things along the way, like the fake punt, but it's something that I'm not like broken up about forever. This isn't losing after a 35-3 lead at halftime over the Buffalo Bills when you're the Oilers. This is different. You're playing against a team that's way better than you, not against a team with a backup quarterback in Frank Reich. And I always say like Reich. I shouldn't. That's like the Nazi Empire. Reich. And it's different. So I think the sour grapes at DeAndre Hopkins are misguided. If you're mad at anyone, you should be mad about Bill O'Brien making the trade. But I do see conceptually how the trade actually can work out. What else do we have here? Scooby-doop-doop-doop-wop. Aria, move away. My cat's scratching the back of my seat. Oh, yeah. So I saw a tweet from the Houston Rockets. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, God, Paul is about to take a shot at the Houston Rockets. No, I'm not, actually. The Rockets are doing something that just about every single person on Twitter is doing this week. Describe your blank moment as boring as possible. The Rockets tweeted out, describe your favorite Rockets moment as boring as possible. And I know a lot of you are thinking what Paul's about to do. You're thinking, oh, Paul's going to take a shot at all the times James Harden blew it in the playoffs. No, I'm not. My actual favorite moment while covering the Houston Rockets when I was in Houston was strolling into work on a Saturday with the news that the Rockets had signed Dwight Howard. I mean, they had gone from being this afterthought franchise in the middle of the road with like Luis Scola as their best player. They had, I remember in that one season with Luis Scola and like Marcus Camby at the end of the year. It was Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry didn't play a lot of the season. He seemed to be upset about things. Kevin Martin randomly like quit on the team. And you also had on that team a young Chandler Parsons in his first season. I think Samuel Dallenberg was on the team. And Goran Dragic, who was my favorite player on that team. Then all of a sudden the next year, it's different. You have Jeremy Lin, you have Patrick Beverley. But like those two seasons, and they had brought in, they would bring in James Harden right before the start of the year. And all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe this is the making of something here. You have a guy who could potentially be a star. The next year when they brought in Dwight Howard, I got so excited about the idea of what the Rockets could be with James Harden, who we had seen for the first time as a guy by himself. And then with Dwight Howard aboard, you have two stars. All of a sudden, you actually might be a championship contender. I was so excited when they brought in Dwight Howard. I really was. And that excitement has not been met since. Whatever excitement we might have had when the Rockets took the 3-2 series lead against the Golden State Warriors, as soon as Chris Paul hurt his hamstring at the end of that game, I think there was a real idea, oh, God, they're not going to be able to win these last two games. Though they did have chances in it. But I never really found myself worked up to the point of excitement in that game. I wasn't that excited, too, when they came all the way back from that big deficit that they had against the Clippers either, because James Harden was on the bench in that game, and I was wondering, okay, this guy's your star. What the heck's going on here? So, for me, the best moment, the best memory I have was when they brought in Dwight Howard, who, by the way, I think he is misremembered by Rockets fans. I don't think he was as bad as you guys seem to think he was, because you guys seem to make so many excuses for why James Harden hasn't made it work. But the reality is this. He is now on sidekick number 3. Chris Paul was his sidekick. Russell Westbrook is his sidekick. Dwight Howard was his first sidekick, but guess what? Dwight Howard outplayed James Harden in the 2014 playoffs against the Portland Trail Blazers. He was way better than Harden, who was exhausted at the end of games, a theme that we have continued to see throughout the playoffs. The next year in that series against the Clippers where the Rockets came back, he also outperformed Harden in that series to the point where Harden was actually on the bench during crunch time. 2016 was a bad year. They brought in, I'm forgetting his name. Who was that dude that was on the Denver Nuggets? Ty Lawson. They bring in Ty Lawson. You're thinking Ty Lawson's going to give the Rockets a sort of big 3. And Lawson's just a mess. He's out of shape when he comes in. Never worked out. And then everything just sort of blew up. And I think James Harden didn't do what a leader should do. I think he just sort of checked out. And it seems like he just checks out when things aren't going his way. He checked out on Chris Paul. He's possibly going to check out on Russell Westbrook if this thing doesn't work out this year. I think there's a chance of the Rockets actually maybe going farther in the playoffs than you'd expect this season. They've had a lot of rest, so Harden's probably not going to be as worn down as you'd think. Hopefully he has been doing his best to stay in shape. He's all of a sudden skinny. I'm not sure if that's necessarily good given his durability in the past, but I do think it means that there's maybe a chance that they play this small ball, fast-paced offense that they were doing before we had the COVID-19 break. There actually is a world where that's a long shot team to win the NBA Finals. I know. You're still also relying on James Harden and Russell Westbrook in the playoffs, both of whom I think in the last couple of years have just been dreadful for the most part. Harden in big-time moments, not good enough. Really bad games in crunch-time spots. And Russell Westbrook is the epitome of Rambo on a basketball court. Are we to believe that he is not going to all of a sudden pick up the ball and just play with it the entire game the way that he had when he was on Oklahoma City? And I think despite that MVP despite that MVP the year that he had, basically ball hogging the Thunder out of the playoffs every single year, I don't know that that's entirely gone, but it had been gone of late, and I do think that there is some potential there. So there you go. All right, we got some questions. Ask Gallant anything. You can ask them on Facebook, facebook.com/PaulGallantSports. You can ask them on YouTube as well, youtube.com/PaulGallant. You can also get after me on Instagram, @GallantSays, @SportsPaul, PAWL. Robert Ramirez. That's Pave Text Rob. What do you think of Harden and Westbrook not showing up to the bubble yet? It's a bit diva-ish, but they're not the only stars that haven't shown up. We have Kawhi Leonard, who's been taking his sweet time. I don't know necessarily that LeBron James is there. It's something, though, that's easy to point at. I don't know that Harden and Westbrook care about the critics anymore. I think that they are basically to the point of bleep everybody except for ourselves. I don't know that them coming into the bubble later as opposed to earlier is going to hurt them. So I don't have an issue with it, but I do think it's something that people will point at if the Rockets end up struggling. I don't know that that's necessarily right. Steve Beckholt, the Ultimate Texans. My man Paul, what's up, brother? How you doing, buddy? Brent McKinney asks on YouTube. And this goes back to Sherm and our conversations about whether or not he took a shot at Pete Carroll. Sherm rightly took a shot at the NFL for the hypocrisy of not letting players exchange jerseys after the game due to social distancing. That is 100% true. That is a bizarre ruling, and it's entirely done for political correctness and public relations and all of that stuff. What are you really preventing in a game where people are beating the snot out of each other by preventing two guys from exchanging jerseys after a game? And by the way, I feel like you could still exchange jerseys after a game. Maybe you just go to a laundry room or something like that, and in the laundry room you have both of the guys. Like, you separate the whites from the darks, I guess. You put them in there, you wash them. My cat is just knocking things over. What are you doing? Come here. Come here. Everybody, this is my cat, Aria. She is creating mischief right now because she wants attention. What are you doing, hun? Okay, get out of here. Go away. Go away. What was I talking about? Yeah, it's dumb. I mean, jersey exchanges, you're really thinking that that's going to help these players be more healthy? No, that's not happening. Ocho Texto, #PMFG. Ooh, yes, I appreciate that. Jessica Evans says, you are missed, Pauly G. I appreciate that as well. Ocho Texto also says, I see you have the best looking helmet in history. The Houston Gamblers helmet. The Houston Gamblers helmet's pretty cool. The Houston Oilers helmet's pretty cool. The Houston Texans helmet, it's so... The nickname, the more you think about it, it's a good one, but I don't like that it's a cow. Oh, Paul, it's a bull. Is it? It's a flag that looks like a cow/bull. Bulls are what? Washington Generals, record-wise, when it comes to fighting matadors. Cows are 0 and whatever, even worse than the Washington Generals when it comes to not getting killed for steak. Like, I don't know. I think there could be a better logo there. And I really wish that the Tennessee Titans, who had the Oilers' rights, would give the Oiler nickname back. I know that the Texans are never going to take it back. There's this weird, like, back and forth between them. And Amy Adams Strunk, who's the Titans owner, she's never going to give that look back. But man, that Oilers look is so good. Oh, it's a bothersome deal. that they can't go back to that look. I would like to see the Texans go to a version of the Oilers uniforms where the helmets are white. You have the same stripes and you just have the Texans logo on the side. And you basically just have the Oilers uniforms except for with the navy blue, the deep steel blue, that you have. Randy asks, if Russell doesn't win another Super Bowl, is he an elite quarterback? Russell's the second best quarterback in the game right now. And I mean, this idea of elite quarterback conversations, he has already cleared the bar. The people that are trying to make Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford and in the past Eli Manning Hall of Famers or elite quarterbacks are out of their bleeping minds. I don't know what they see in those guys. I really don't. The Matt Ryan thing in particular. Matt Ryan was great with Kyle Shanahan. He's been pretty much an afterthought when he's not had Kyle Shanahan around. They had that historic year where they eventually blow the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Shanahan moves on. All of a sudden, Matt Ryan comes back to earth, is throwing a lot of interceptions. Statistics are not everything. Passing yards are not everything. Russell Wilson is so much better, objectively, than just about every single quarterback in the game. He won one Super Bowl. He got to his second one. Aaron Rodgers has only been to one. And I mean, we've talked about this guy as the best quarterback of all time, which I think is ridiculous when Tom Brady's been to 9 times as many Super Bowls as Aaron Rodgers. The guys who are at the top, as far as what their resume's been over the last 20 years, it's Brady, it's Peyton Manning, it's Rodgers is in that conversation, Ben Roethlisberger is in that conversation, Russell Wilson is in that conversation, and there are some other guys that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head too. But I feel like this weird trying to push quarterbacks who are not elite into that territory, I don't understand why it keeps happening. Like, just accept that these quarterbacks aren't that good. Eli Manning's not a Hall of Famer. He's 500 as a quarterback. He's never even close to being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Just because he won 2 Super Bowls, which were honestly won by his defense and had a couple of ridiculous out of his keister throws, that doesn't make a Hall of Famer. Who will be the Seahawks starting wide receiver core this year? I don't think that they're going to add Antonio Brown. I hope that they don't, by the way. I think he's a crazy person. I think Josh Gordon might be in the mix by the end of the year, but I think he's going to be dealing with a suspension the first couple of games of the season. I know that he was suspended for the end of the year, and I don't know that he's necessarily going to be reinstated. I know he's applied for reinstatement. Here's the question. It's who's next up on the Seahawks wide receiver depth chart. So you got Dave Moore. The Seahawks really like Dave Moore. They think he's unbelievably talented. I don't know that I see it. There is a cult hero-ish appreciation for John Ursua that I find amusing and like to roll with. And Ursua could be one of those slot receiver types, but I also don't know that he's done anything to prove that he can be the number 3 wide receiver. So likely the third guy is going to be Phillip Dorsett, who had some issues picking things up in New England, but think about it from this perspective. If you're the Seahawks, you want as many guys who can stretch the field as you possibly can have. Tyler Lockett can do it in his own way, and Russell Wilson has an innate ability to throw balls perfectly to Lockett, so despite his size, he's able to catch them downfield. You have DK Metcalf, who is a giant, who is also fast and can jump over people. And you also have in Phillip Dorsett a guy who's got an unbelievable 40 time. Any player who can run deep down the field is someone that the Seahawks should do their best to involve in the offense. And if Josh Gordon is not on the team at the beginning of the year, I think that the lead is Phillip Dorsett to be your number 3. Brent McKinney asks, does Seattle ever get another NBA team? There is too much money in this city for that not to happen. And I am very curious to see what this pandemic is going to create from a just financial standpoint for a lot of these basketball teams that are strapped for cash. Unfortunately, New Orleans got Zion Williamson. As long as they have Zion Williamson, they're safe. It almost feels like maybe the NBA rigged the lottery so that the Pelicans could get Zion Williamson so that they're still relevant. They might have rigged it also for Memphis, the Grizzlies, so that they could get Ja Morant as well. The Grizzlies are a team that has an interesting opt-out clause in their lease. If they don't meet a certain attendance number this year, they're not going to reach that attendance number. But the thing is, you're going to need the city of Memphis to basically not find a way to publicly fund the team so that they stay in town. And you're also going to need to find a way for investors in Seattle to just completely outbid whatever the Grizzlies have to offer because they have the right to match it, I believe, based off of the rules of the lease. As far as other teams that might move, I don't see Sacramento moving. They just got that new arena. It would be very, very, I think, problematic if they were to move. Expansion for the NBA, I don't know when that's going to happen because I'm trying to think of another city that gets a team where it's actually realistic for this team to be supported. I don't know that that's Vancouver. The Grizzlies' stint there did not last very long. I'll be honest, off the top of my head, I don't really know much about that. You have some bad owners. You have a bad owner in Phoenix. You have a bad owner in Minnesota with the Timberwolves and the Suns. But where is that second expansion team going to be? Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay barely cares about professional sports. I mean, especially when they're not good. The Rays are a pretty good team. People don't even go to their games. I don't know that that's the kind of market that you want to jump into. Jacksonville, that's not going to happen. Another bigger city. You already have a team in Memphis. Do you move a team to Nashville? Is that where you get more basketball? I suppose that's more possible. That's closer to Kentucky. That's closer to that area. But you do have already the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know if that's the team of the region. You have the Pacers in that area as well. Is Cincinnati a team? A city that gets a team? They do have two professional teams. That is on the border of Kentucky, which is a place that loves its basketball. That might be a logical choice as a second place. Outside of that, St. Louis, that's a possibility. Kansas City, maybe. One of those teams could potentially get the second. But I think it's going to be expansion that gets the Sonics back a team. My buddy Alex Mahar asks, Rambo has a better shooting percentage and close range finishes than Westbrook. Well, here's the thing. I think Westbrook's more Rambo than Harden. I think Harden thinks he's a really good three-point shooter. He's not, and he takes too many three-point shots for my liking. He's an above-average shooter, but if you take a look at his percentage three-point shots-wise, it's because of the high volume that he shoots, it's close to I think almost 100th or something like that. Now, there are a lot of guys who are ahead of him and maybe have significantly less attempts than him from three, but Harden's irrational confidence in his three-point shot will lead to the occasional 2 for 18 night. And when those happens, he just keeps shooting. And I've always been of the mindset, if it's not working, then find other ways to score and attack the mid-range, and maybe you slowly push yourself back out as the game works on. But I know players don't think about things that scientifically. As far as Westbrook, I'm really curious as to how the close range finishes will continue with Westbrook, because you would think that if you can potentially clog the lane with someone big, but there aren't really guys like this anymore, that you can stop the way that he has made the Rockets offense better in this small ball lineup. He can penetrate when the Rockets don't have some dude that's just sitting there underneath the basket because he's so fast. But he is a guy that is just about as inefficient as possible. Unbelievable fantasy player, unbelievable actual athlete, but yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of Russell Westbrook's game. We got some questions, and you can ask him in a variety of different ways. You can ask him on my Instagram, too, if you want. @SportsPaul, that's where I post all my sports stuff. You can also ask @Gallant Says on the old Instagram. We did get a couple of questions on said Instagram. I'm looking at them right now. JWatts253 on SportsPaul asked, where do your allegiances and rooting stand now that you're a transplant for the Apple Cup? This one was easy. I was always probably going to be a Washington State fan when I found out that I was moving up here. I don't like purple as a color. Cougars or Cats. Drew Bledsoe went there. Drew Bledsoe is my favorite quarterback, not named Tom Brady, that's ever played in the NFL. I grew up watching him play. It was always going to be Washington State. And Washington State people, they know how to have a good time. I went out to the Palouse for Washington State's game against Stanford last year. It was a whole lot of fun. I wish that I had been able to stay in Pullman that night as opposed to driving all the way back up to Spokane after the game. But it was a really, really cool place. I liked it a lot. I feel like I vibe more with the Washington State people. Shreddit0536 asks, Shreddit0536, got it. Some have suggested there should be no collegiate sports for 2 years. That's a doctor on Golic and Wingo. What could the real-world ramifications be to all professional sports? And I'm assuming you're asking this if they were to move away from professional sports for 2 years. Also, at what point would the reward outweigh the risk? Protecting the wellness and health of student athletes shouldn't dictate eliminating T. Sorry, that ended weird, and I'm not the best when it comes to reading comprehension. Okay, so when it comes to no collegiate sports for 2 years, you are going to lose all sorts of collegiate sports forever. And I feel bad for the ladies. I feel bad for the people that don't play revenue sports, because there's a very good chance that those scholarships are going to go bye-bye now. And that all the time that you might have spent in high school and all those academies and things trying to be the best athlete you can be, for those people who have had parents that put them through all of that stuff, I think that it's going to be really, really hard for them to justify continuing to do this. So I think that there's going to be a carryover effect from the top down. If there's no college sports for 2 years, you're also going to see universities lose a ton of money. I would imagine tuition would go up as a result of that in certain states. The state schools, especially the ones that get a lot of income from college football and attendance. I would say Alabama, LSU, that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, there's going to be some serious, serious consequences in college sports. And I've always wondered this. I mean, it was only a matter of time in my book before we saw college programs, most athletic programs, most sports, they lose money. Most football programs, I would say the majority of football programs make their schools money, and some basketball programs make their schools money. For the most part, everyone else is operating at a loss. Every other sport. And it's football and basketball who is tasked with providing the money for transportation, for scholarships, for everything else, for programs across it, because you're just not making a lot of sports, whether it's making a lot of money, whether it's women's basketball or lacrosse. It's just a sunk cost, a lot of these sports. And it's a shame, but I've always wondered, okay, as a capitalist, if these athletes aren't bringing money into your university, then why are you giving them a scholarship? And I know that's a bit of a blunt question to ask, but if you're not earning your university money, what does the free education that the university is giving you, what does that get for the school? It doesn't really get anything. So I've always wondered about that side of things. And now we're at a point where I think that those universities are going to have to actually operate that way. And Title IX might be something that, despite it being put into place and seeming just really rock solid and creating a lot of equal opportunities for women's scholarships based off of sports, I think a lot of those are going to go bye-bye. So that's just the college side of things. Professionally, you're going to see owners finagle and whine and act like they don't have a whole lot of money. I think for the most part, these owners have the money to withstand the storm, but I do think that we will see some owners freak out a little bit, especially if this lasts 2 years, and decide to sell teams. What else do we have? Isaiah, who just had me on his show last night. What's up, Isaiah? Asks, Matt Chapman or Alex Bregman? Who's the better third baseman? I'm biased here. You're biased too. He's an A's fan. It's Alex Bregman. Oh, Paul, they're beating the trash can. Sorry, Alex Bregman. You could move Bregman to shortstop. I think he would be just as good as Carlos Correa at shortstop. I think he's a really good fielder. I think he's a terrifying at-bat to go up against if you're a pitcher. Draws out counts, has power, has the ability to hit for contact as well. I would prefer Alex Bregman. And I like his personality too. But I understand that he is going to get a lot of criticism this coming season. Randy says, Astros deserve what they get as far as retaliation. I don't think so. I think everyone, to a degree, was cheating. The Astros got caught, but you're going to tell me that the Yankees weren't? The Yankees were. I strongly believe that. And we'll see if that letter that they don't want to get released ever gets released. But if they don't want it released, then they did something. The Red Sox were doing something. I believe the Dodgers were doing something as well. All of these teams were whining and crying foul. I'm sorry. Look at yourself in the mirror for a second. What were you doing? I know from a conversation I had with Astros pitcher Lance McCullers about Game 7 of the 2017 World Series, where there were so many hit batters and so many crossed signs during the course of the game because the Astros were realizing that the Dodgers were stealing all of their signs. The Dodgers, I guess, had their signs being stolen by the Astros. This was a sport-wide problem. They came down hard on the Astros because they had the most evidence to do it. And then all of a sudden, baseball has been as poorly run as you're going to see any sports league over the last couple of years. You think that they're going to put the Yankees under the knife? That would be like the NCAA coming down hard on Duke, which you really think that's going to happen with Zion Williamson and his stepfather getting $400,000 or whatever? No. The Blue Bloods, they will reign supreme. And I don't think that any institution, any league is going to have the balls to take them down. What else do we have here? We had a couple of questions. These are questions I am sort of asking myself. Paul, who's the most unlikable athlete in sports? I talked about this already. Bryson DeChambeau, his name, the Kangol cap or scally cap that he wears, the fact that he just has no ability to control his emotions and is getting mad at cameramen. I think it's really funny that Brooks Koepka subtly accused him of being on the juice. I think it's Bryson DeChambeau. There are some other nominees that you guys gave me, and I'll go through some of them really quickly because I asked this on Twitter earlier in the week. Where did they go? Ocho Texto told me Odell Beckham Jr. Yes, Odell Beckham Jr., by the way, has blocked me on Twitter because I once retweeted something he said. It was like one of those like cryptic quotes. It was like, wow, man, you're so meta. Blocked. I think he responded to me, but I never saw the response. A couple of people said James Harden. Yeah, I hate watching James Harden play. I hate it. Hate it. And I can openly say that now. I don't really like the Rockets either. I don't root for them. I have never been a fan of them. And it's mainly because of the way that they operate. But who cares about that? I've been so bitter about this organization in the past, and I feel like it's sometimes clouded my judgment. I'm going to try to be objective with them going forward. Goodness gracious, need some water. Vontez Burfict. Oh, yeah. Vontez Burfict. That guy's just a cheap shot artist. It's like 2020 Jack Tatum. Trevor Bauer, he's an easy one to get after. I'm not going to lie, though. I've liked his visits, to pardon my take. He's just an internet troll. And if you can get past the internet troll side of things, I feel like he's not that unlikable. But if you're someone that spends a lot of time on the internet, I get it. Someone says Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh, that one's easy. But that doesn't count also because we're talking about a foreign athlete. We got to stick to the America. Paul, what's the worst men's clothing? I saw this post yesterday. It drove me crazy. It was a picture that a woman presented, and it said, "Ladies, excuse me, not ladies. Guys, what's stopping you from dressing like this 24/7?" And it shows some dude wearing a vest, a shirt, and a tie. Okay, vests are the stupidest, like one of the stupidest pieces of men's clothing that there is. Like, why are you wearing a vest? I really want to be sweating my balls off while I'm in a suit. Woohoo, this is great. This is amazing. If you're a husky type, I can see why you might want to wear it. If you got pecs, and I sort of have pecs compared to the lack of muscles that I have anywhere else, I don't want to hide my pecs. And I also don't want to sweat. I think vests look stupid. I'm sorry, I'm not a saloon keeper. I'm not, as someone described it, a character from an anime dating game. I'm sorry. Vests look stupid. So do Kangol caps and fedoras. Like, what are you doing with those? If you're wearing a Kangol cap, you think you're in the Peaky Blinders or something like that? You look like a paper boy. Take the hat off. If you're wearing a fedora, you think you're Indiana Jones? You got a booby trap on your head. You look like a clown. Stop wearing those. No more vests, no more fedoras, no more Kangol caps. But Paul, I wear a Kangol cap all the time. I don't think anyone's actually saying that right now. Guess what? Just stop. Just stop. You're not Sully from Southie in Boston. And a lot of people in Boston wear it. And I feel like they're trying to say, like, oh, I'm Irish, I'm tough. No. It's just a bad look. Wear a baseball hat if you want to wear a hat. It's easy. Simple. All right. Paul, what's the worst way to spend your money? Well, I feel like paying $350 to go to Wrigley Field and watch baseball from a roof. That is a dumb way to spend your money. You're not even in the ballpark. How are you enjoying yourself? You're going to be socially distanced in 25% capacity in a park that's on a roof. I'm not even sure if the park is like across the street from Wrigley Field. You're going to pay $350 to not have a stadium experience and sit on a roof and watch a game across the street. You serious? Why? What's wrong with you? Seriously, what's wrong with you if you're going to watch a game from there for $350? There's no noise. There's no ambience. If you're going to go to a ballpark, you want it to be a lively atmosphere. You don't want to go to something that's empty. Tropicana Field was nice to go to when I lived in St. Petersburg, Florida, when it was empty. That was because it cost $10 to get into the stadium. $350? Are you out of your mind? I don't get it. You got to be really in love with baseball to go there. There's a list of 50 movies that got put up, and I want to weigh in on it. I've amazingly seen all but 2.5 of these movies. Shawshank Redemption, Dark Knight, Inception, Fight Club, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, The Matrix, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, The Godfather, Dark Knight Rises, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Interstellar, 7, Django Unchained, Gladiator, Batman Begins, The Avengers, The Silence of the Lambs, Inglourious Basterds, Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, The Departed. The first movie on this list that I have not seen is The Prestige. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. I believe I know the end of the movie where there's like 2 Christian Bales or something like that. Spoiler alert. I haven't watched it mainly because I found out about the spoiler. It was a movie that I wanted to see because I love all the Christopher Nolan stuff out there. I like Christian Bale. I think Michael Caine's in it. I think you got Hugh Jackman in it as well. Other movies. The Wolf of Wall Street. Seen it. Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, The Green Mile, Avatar, Memento, Godfather Part 2, Shutter Island, American Beauty. I have no idea what American Beauty is. I don't even know who's in it. That's the only one that I know nothing about. Guardians of the Galaxy, Titanic. I have only seen the second half, and I'm not going to lie. I think I watched the second half because I think it's hilarious when that one guy falls off the back of the boat and he hits the propeller and then he starts spitting like 100 miles per hour. I don't know why I find that funny. I'm a sick person. I apologize. I also find it amusing whenever the band decides that they're going to play that like sad song while everyone's like slowly dying. Like that would be really creepy to hear. I don't think I'd want to hear music as everything's going to hell. I don't think I'd want that. I think I'd want dead silence so I could, I guess, come to terms with the fact that I'm going to freeze to death in the ocean. I'll never let go, Jack. She let go. She let go. And then all of a sudden, like, she's got this jewel. This is the other part that I know, because I see in the very end. She's got this jewel that the family is looking for, and it costs all this money, and she's like, I gotta throw the water. Put her back in a nursing home. Don't let her throw that away. That is a family heirloom. That could have helped that family out, though they seem to be very wealthy, given that they had like a submarine to explore the depths of the Titanic with. I hated that part. I just threw over the water. I'm never going to move on from Jack. He's a guy that I met. He's like an urchin boy who might be 15 years old, who painted me naked. I don't get it. Maybe I should watch all of the Titanic. The rest of the list. Back to the Future, seen it, American History X, V for Vendetta, Leon, The Professional. That's the assassin movie with Gary Oldman, with that French dude. I forget what his name is. And I believe Natalie Portman's in that as a kid. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Goodfellas, Kill Bill Volume 1, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. That should be higher up on the list. Wall-E, The Usual Suspects, Braveheart, 46. Geez, that should be way higher up. That's my favorite movie. Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, Finding Nemo, Iron Man, The Lion King. Boom, there you go. Okay, so that is going to wrap up this edition. Actually, check that. Hang on. I got some other stuff. There's some more questions. I thought we were done with the questions. Brandon Owen, you used to work at Blockbuster, huh? No, I love movies. I love old movies. And, I mean, right now I'm trying to go through this list of 80s movies. No, me and my dad would watch classic movies all the time when I was growing up. And I feel like I have gained a lot of references because my dad forced me to watch a lot of old movies. Abhai says, hi, sir. Hi. That's not a question. It's ask Gallant anything. Goodness gracious. Wasting my time here. Just kidding. All right, everybody, have yourself a wonderful Friday. Have yourself a good weekend. We're going to do this again next week, but it's going to be on Wednesday, and it's probably going to be at 6 o'clock, 6:30, so mark your calendars. I think it's a better time for everybody. Most people are already checked out for the weekend by now. If you are having a happy hour somewhere, like in Houston, Texas, I think it's 2 o'clock right now. I suppose you could be doing that. You could be off for the weekend already. I hope you have a great weekend. For those right here in Seattle, same thing to you as well. It is noon. It's a cloudy day. Weather's okay. Hope you have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Make sure that you're following all my social accounts so I can bombard you with content. I have an article up, 710sports.com. about why I don't think Richard Sherman was taking shots at Pete Carroll. Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. You can also add my public Facebook profile. I will let you into my personal life. Instagram, @Gallant Says, if you want to see me being pretty. @SportsPaul, if you want to see sports memes and sports takes from me. You've also got me on Twitter, @Gallant Says. I have not been posting as much on Twitter of late because Twitter is a god-awful place these days, but that's the place where I have the most followers, and that's the place where you're going to get the most simplistic and just the most volume of takes. I said Instagram already. Twitch is a thing. I'm going to start playing video games on it eventually. I keep saying this. This weekend might be the time that I start it. Twitch.com/Gallant Says. YouTube. I have a YouTube channel too. I need to start posting stuff on that. Paul, you've said this a million times at the end of the episode. I know. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. I appreciate you joining me. Subscribe to the Danny and Gallant podcast if you haven't already. Give it a nice little review, please. 5 stars. That helps too. Every little bit helps. We got a lot of interesting reviews in the other way. We have like half 5-star reviews and half 1-star reviews. What does that say about the Danny and Gallant program? I don't think it says anything. I think a lot of people hate us. All right. I have been rambling on. I do not know how to end these things at all. I'm going to have to figure that out. But I appreciate all of you for tuning in, and I will see you Wednesday, 6 o'clock, 6:30, if you want to see me on the mean internet streets like this, wearing a tropical shirt, and you will hear from me on Monday, 7 o'clock Pacific time, for the next edition of Danny and Gallant. Until then,